Now, the latest episode of Up Front with Simon Jordan is now available to download on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. This week, Simon sat down for a special interview with the current Newcastle boss, Eddie Howe, and they discussed what happened behind the scenes.
Do you work for Paul Mitchell?
I work with Paul Mitchell, yes.
How do you view that structure? I mean, there was controversy during the summer. Paul's observations about defined strategies and the inability to deliver certain outcomes that you wanted were a broadside at you, and you were getting thrown under a bus a little bit.
So I think there was a lot of noise in the summer, and I understand that this is the media's job to blow everything up, to make stories. The reality is, internally, it wasn't like that.
What does he mean by predefined strategy? Because it's an implicit criticism of you.
I will protect or stand up for our transfer business. I think it's been really good. Excellent recruitment. I love the players that we've got. It's really difficult for me to comment on what Paul meant. Only he can sort of articulate that to you. Like, you've obviously put the question in one way. I'd be...
It's what he said, mate.
Well, you can twist words to suit any narrative. I'm sure Paul didn't mean it like that, like the question that you've just asked me. There'll be loads of other factors determining our team's performance. But the most important thing is how we work together and how we recruit players in the future.
Do you envisage in your mind's eye lifting something major with Newcastle?
I always have done. I made it clear when I came here that was my dream. It's been too long. There's a desire from everyone internally to make that happen. We came close.
Yeah.
We want to go closer.
Now, the latest episode of Up Front with Simon Jordan is now available. All thanks to William Hill. All available to download now from wherever you get your podcast. I always find it fascinating when a current manager goes on things like that.
Yeah, you know with Simon's going to, he's going to put you in an awkward situation. He's asked questions that others don't ask, and he can articulate a question and push you in a corner. And Eddie done very well when the parts I've heard of that conversation. And he handles himself in a very kind of good manner, in my opinion. He doesn't sound big-headed. He doesn't sound like he's full of himself. He's just a nice, grounded citizen, Eddie Howe. Got a few issues, though. I watched Newcastle 3 times this week. I went to 2 of the games and watched the other one on the TV. Wow, that's a team that's lost a little bit of its mojo.
Big time. Why, though?
I think there's a bit of an apathy of some of their players that, like Isaac, for me, he's an outstanding talent. The goal he got against Liverpool was like on another level. He got another one yesterday. But there's times when he
goes missing.
He's not involved in the game. Joe Linton's a little bit like that. Gomes can be a little bit like that. And you just can't, as talented as they are, those are probably the 3 biggest players they have, and you've got Harvey Barnes, you've got players around it that I don't think, the full Newcastle ticket. Yeah. So they're just not quite right at the moment, and they're getting. They were brilliant against Liverpool, by the way. At home, they seem to be a different proposition, but they got a bit of work to do. Only 5 wins out of 15 is not great news for Newcastle,
alarming, isn't it? Just want to say a quick hello to my uncle who's listening.
Uncle,
big hello to Damien. He said, "Great show, great crack." He goes, "But Celtic would shaft Spurs." Would you have Big Ange back then, Uncle? You can have him back, because I think a lot of the Spurs fans want him out. What's the poll on now, producer Ross? It's still the same numbers. Still.
Yeah, so it's good. There's a bit of love for Ange. That's good. I think Ange is a citizen. He's a great guy. You can tell that. He's sort of bloke.
News just in is growing 57 saying Big Ange to stay.
Yeah, come on, Ange. Win us a cup.
That's who we are, mate. That's just who we are. Right, you mentioned about Newcastle on the field. Brentford, wow. Again, doing really well. Thomas Frank, is that someone that could take the Spurs job?
Well, Thomas Frank definitely got mentioned in the United sort of situation, and I think that's quite rightly so, because he handles. He seems to set up his teams in a very sort of way that's engaging, in terms of like they're good to look at. They get the results. He handles the media very well. I think Brentford will be nervous to lose him, but he's doing a great job there, and they've got some great players. A good team, Brentford.
Yeah. Well, difficult one, because with Brentford, he's done so well with them and taken them so far. Is there a ceiling to where he could take a club like Brentford?
Well, you could ask, you could say that about a lot of clubs. Where is the ceiling? Crystal Palace have been in the division for Premier League for 11 years. I think the highest they finished is 10th. But it's tough. It's a tough division. And if you're doing well in the division, if you're in the top 8, well, they're 9th actually, Brentford. You're doing exceedingly well with the budget that they've got.
Absolutely. In terms of Newcastle and Eddie Howe, how long do they go down that road with him staying outside of the top 10 of the table? Champions League team last season. Yeah,
and I think the ownership there is a little bit of change. Amanda's left. I was there at the Crystal Palace game. The board were there. I didn't recognise anyone from my time at Newcastle. They
recognise you though, didn't they, Pods?
Well, I just think that it's a club that really and truly they're just looking at results. That they want that team to win trophies, and I think there will be pressure on Eddie because I think that, he needs to keep that team up and around that sort of top 6.
You mentioned about Selhurst Park. Palace 2, Manchester City 2, more drop points for Man City. They can still win the title, though, can't they?
I don't think so.
Really?
No, I think actually the Palace. No, after they got the win, right? After they got the win in the week, I thought to myself, okay, they're going to roll Palace. They're back. They're back. But they weren't, and I had a few Palace fans text me after saying that they should have won it. Obviously they get a guy sent off. Pep's angry again. Yeah. He's Mr. Angry, isn't he, at the moment?
Seen that clip of him going to the hotel?
I have, yes, yeah.
Proper head's gone moment that.
Well, obviously when you're a manager, things are not going well, and the fans from other clubs can start teasing you all that, but you just usually just let it ride. You just smile and move on. That's what you do. But he reacts to that. He's just tense, isn't he? And it's a very similar to the Newcastle thing. You look at it on paper, Newcastle, Man City. You look at their team on paper, and you think, wow, how are you going to beat them? But at the moment, the performance level, the fight, the spirit of the side is lost, and that is a major part of winning teams.
And the thing is as well, Liverpool could be 11 points clear if they win their game in hand.
I thought the biggest thing at the weekend was the game getting called off, because that game at Newcastle, which I think possibly the best game I've seen this year live.
It was great, wasn't it?
It was an unbelievable standard of game.
Proper
Newcastle
Premier League,
were brilliant
Liverpool,
as well.
Newcastle classic,
that was a great game. And I thought, and they had Man City, Newcastle, and they were going to Everton. I thought, that might be a bridge too far. So getting it called off was happy days for Slot. And then the results of the weekend, he must have been sitting, he must be laughing tonight.
Yeah, you got away with that one.
Yeah.
In terms of Pep, if they don't win the league this year, does he go again?
Pep?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, come on. He's signed that contract. Yeah, I don't think he's that type of manager to walk away from anything. We got the points tribunal coming at some point. That's going to have some sort of effect on that football club, one way or the other. They generally look. Someone said, it might have been Ross Produce talking about Palmer. When you actually look at it now, how De Bruyne, how important he is, right? He's come in and he actually looks like he's lifted it, even though he's admitting himself he's not physically right. He's still struggling with this ankle or whatever it is. To think that you had that ready-made replacement in Palmer in the building, it must really be sore and really hurtful that what he's doing at Chelsea at the minute.
Absolutely.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.